Next thing we're going to do, we're going to backtrack a little bit to some things you need to think about after you've selected all the gear. You decided what type of music you like, what you're going to, what speakers you like, what you can afford, all the proper cables and everything. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to do some preparation to the vehicle itself. Merely taking a really nice speaker and bolting it into a factory hole is not necessarily going to give you what you expect for sound performance, even if you use a key lock and some of that kind of stuff. Well, what am I talking about? Well, I've got some of it right here, hiding underneath everything I have. And this is a sheet of hush mat. There's many other companies out there. You got Roadkill, you got Dynamat. I'm just partial to hush mat. I know Tim McCarthy, the owner. It's made right in Kansas City. I've just had a really good response with the hush mat. And like I say, I'm not necessarily, pro hush mat over anything else other than I really like it. I like Tim, and it does a fantastic job. I am pro, however, of any form of this you can get your hands on. And when we had Tim on the show, it was about a year ago or so, maybe even a little more. And Tim mentioned you don't have to cover every inch of every panel. Which I thought was odd because the more hush mat that you put on your vehicle, the more he sells. But I use a lot of it in installs. My own personal truck, I've got just 6x9s in the doors on a 2014 Dodge Ram. I have 25 sheets of that hush mat material in the doors, just the front doors. I mean, that is a lot of material. I've got a couple layers on the outer door skin, on the inner door card actuator that has the window control motors, that plastic panel. It's done on both sides, and I've done the door panels. And that deadens the doors. Anything that vibrates in a vehicle absorbs output. Well, once again, this stuff is not necessarily pocket change. It's not cheap. For a bulk pack, you might spend, anywhere depending on what size bulk pack you get, $250, $400. But it makes a huge difference. And the added benefit is spending that money that you're never going to literally see the product in because you're going to put panels over it. It's going to quiet the entire vehicle. You're going to have less road noise, especially when it's raining, like on the roof or hail. Won't necessarily prevent hail dents, but it's not going to sound as bad if you're in the vehicle. But it stops the panels from vibrating. And any amount that anything vibrates absorbs output, and it makes its own sound. It colors the sound. So spending a ton of money on sound dampening material like hush mat is a huge benefit. I do it in just about every install I do. I at least do the outside door skin just to make sure that outer door skin, it's just sheet metal, and the manufacturers are not going to put a lot of this in the vehicle. I think in my car, in just my car, I think I've got about 5 ultra pack bulk packs of that, which is probably a couple 100 pounds of sound dampening material. And the OEM guys are not going to put that much in there. One, it's expensive for them to put it in. Two, it adds weight to the vehicle, which reduces mileage. And of course, it's going to add costs. So you can, in my opinion, you can't put too much of that in. I mean, if I could take my vehicle all apart, take it down to your local bed liner place and have them put a 1/4 inch of rhino liner on the entire vehicle inside and out, that would be ideal for me because that would really deaden everything. But that's not practical or really possible to do because you got to put the vehicle back together after that, and that's going to be a huge mess and pretty much impossible to do. So that's an area where you spend not a huge amount of money, but spend some money and always use some type of sound dampening material, especially in the front doors where your speakers are going to be playing the loudest. The next thing you need to make sure of, if you're doing something like an infinite baffle setup, which infinite baffle is no enclosure, that's where your woofer's just bolted up to the rear deck, you want to reinforce that rear deck. Anything a speaker that is mounted, especially if it's just sheet metal, the more mass you add to it, i.e. sound dampening material, or even literally in the rear deck of a car, bolting some MDF or birch plywood to the bottom of the rear deck before you mount your speaker to it, it's going to add reinforcement, and it's going to help prevent some of that acoustic output loss and it coloring the sound. The more rigid you make the vehicle, the better it's going to sound and the louder it's going to be, which means also you don't necessarily have to have as big of an amplifier because you're not trying to overcome all this other noise and the things that are absorbing the noise and the output. So spend a little bit of money, reinforce those mounting surfaces, and that's why you see, like with the Solo Xbox, that front baffle is double layer. It's 1.5 inches thick. It is hugely thick. In fact, I was talking with Jeff from Lake Havasu. He's the one that you see all those really cool marine posts from. He just built an enclosure for a Solo X. I think he said the baffle for the woofer was 4 inches thick and the sides were 2 inches thick. that thing is going to be very solid. Now, is that way too much? In my opinion, it's never too much. I mean, a foot thick of concrete would be great, you know, acoustically, but not very practical for weight and cost. And of course, then you'd have to buy new suspension and different tires. So everything adds up. But once again, spending a little bit of money in the right places makes a huge difference. You kind of have that plateau. Keep spending money, get to a certain point where it's going to start to plane off. You'll get some more improvement as you go higher in dollars, but not the one-to-one that you may have, you know, when you first start out. Generally, up to about, you know, $3,000 or $4,000, you get a pretty good return on investment. After that, it's personal choice, and you know, you can spend 20 grand on car speakers. Yes, you can, but is that worth it? It's entirely up to you. Like I say, we make some darn good speakers for very reasonable money. So also think about safely running your good wires. Just because a route is shorter and takes less wire doesn't mean it's going to be the best route. It may not be safe. You may be running too close to something in the engine bay. You may be going over sharp metal, you know, corners or something. Especially, don't ever run your power wires over the fender and through the door jams. I mean, we all have seen those pictures. That's just not safe. But while that doesn't cost a lot of money up front to run a little bit of extra wire and run it correctly, the cost savings in the long run versus your vehicle burning down, I think we may even show you a picture of one of those or a video of one of those tonight. It makes a difference. So a little bit of planning, a little bit of upfront money is going to make a huge difference.